Okay, so we are live. This is the Your Life, Your Term Show podcast takeover part 2. This is myself, Anthony Molinaro. I'm a membership coordinator and content producer, along with...
I'm Aiden, Tom's son. I'm 20 years old, going into third year at Western and back this summer in the office helping out. And yeah, the second episode, me and Anthony are taking over. And today we have Connor Eagleson on.
Hey guys. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Connor's a good buddy of ours. He's a Rockstar VIP member, part of the Rockstar Inner Circle membership. Connor, how old are you now?
I turned 30 next week.
30 next week.
Oh, coming up.
You're getting old, man. So Connor's a really impressive guy. He's a young guy. He's really gone down this personal development route, I would say, probably in the past 5 years.
Yeah, since COVID, really, I think just rethinking some things.
Yeah. So, and he's taken a lot of action. And so we just wanted to have him on because he's a very disciplined, I think, motivational guy. I look up to you a lot. I've got a lot of respect for you. And you're a real estate investor. You're in the Bitcoin world. Tell us a little bit about your real estate investing. I don't want it to all just be about the real estate because you have so many more things you bring to the table, I think. But I do want to know about your real estate investing a little bit. I think you just bought your 4th property, right?
Yeah, I can give a quick context. I was on here like 2 years ago now with Tom. So quick update since then. So I'm engaged. So my fiance Maggie and I, we bought a place in 2019 in Waterloo. So that place was 2 units. It was intentional to live in one, kind of rent the other one, house hack. So we did that, and we actually moved. We moved into the upper unit, assumed a tenant in the lower unit, and then within a year, we had moved into the lower unit and did some renovations. So doing that was allowed us to force the appreciation a little bit. So then we refinanced and bought a place, second home in London, single family, and that worked out really well. We assumed a tenant there. They've been amazing. And then just over kind of the COVID real estate market pump, we were able to refinance that place the end of 2020. So
yeah, talk about timing, eh?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. The end of 2021. So
what was your timeline when you got in 2019? Like, how long were you thinking before things were going to start rolling for you?
Well, so we were in New Zealand for a year in 2018. So I had some kind of money put aside for a property, but had the opportunity to go to New Zealand for the year through Maggie's Went for Teachers College. So when I kind of came back, we knew we wanted to find a place. So our back and forth was a little bit of whether we'd buy a home to live in and kind of start and raise a family, or buy more of like an investment with the intention to be able to then, get into our own home a few years down the road. So we went with kind of the delayed path.
And how did you get Maggie on board with that? Because I know that you wanted the delayed path and she was probably wanting the nice home in the nice neighborhood, that type of thing, right?
Yeah. So we still talk about that often, and it's still the goal to do that. I guess the reason for me to be pulled toward an investment property was when I went to university, my dad and a friend of his had actually bought our student house. So I saw the value of owning that student house. I was kind of the live-in landlord. What that did in terms of, the cash flow, place for us to live, and then just keeping it for a few years afterwards. Like, my dad was able to sell it for a large profit. It's since sold for like double the price because this is years ago now. But so I knew the value of real estate. I had a friend that was, into real estate investing. So I bought that real estate, the investment, before kind of coming across Rockstar. And then obviously now with like being surrounded by other investors, you
totally.
realize.
So it sounds like you had a bit of a foundation and idea of real estate before you brought that first property, and that's how you made that decision.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so going back to where we were at then, so we bought the second property. We didn't really have to do any forced appreciation on that. It was just the market that went up in value quite a bit. So we refinanced it. We actually didn't even refinance it at like probably what the full market value was at the time. And then we used that to buy a third property just at the start of this year. And then the 4th property it's a family joint venture. So my sisters and my dad has kind of been involved along the way, but my sisters were able to contribute some equity or some cash, and then I was able to I'm the active partner in the family joint venture as well.
So how did that conversation go? Were you always trying to get your family involved from the get-go, or was it after the 3rd place that your family started paying attention and saying, and wanted to jump on board with you? Did you drive that? How did that joint venture structure happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say it's a bit of both. My younger sister was able to buy a place a few years ago as well in the Kitchener area. She bought a pre-construction townhouse, so that worked out really well for her, just in terms of the closing period and then the market taking off. So she had some equity, and then my older sister also just had some cash aside, and it's a way for her to kind of get into the market as well. So my dad's motivation was to kind of set us all up for the long term. He was willing to go on title, and then the capital contribution was just kind of, I was kind of able to explain to my sisters a little bit the value of real estate investment. This is a long-term play. In 5 years, we'll have options. We can look at selling it. We can look at refinancing it, pulling out kind of any of your down payment, and then having options from there. So
cool. That's a cool family project for you guys to kind of work together, grow together.
Yeah, no, it's been great. And I think for me, one of the more valuable parts of it is like, we kind of live in this bubble with Rockstar, not so much a bubble, but like everyone understands the value of real estate, and like, you're willing to accept the risk, and like what happens with tenants, and like just handling those problems, solving bigger problems.
You start taking those issues for granted. Like you've got the solutions to those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
totally.
then for my family, when it's new to them, there's like, some of those new questions and whatnot. So you have to be able to explain it with confidence and answer those questions, and to really grasp it, to like kind of teach it to others, if you will. It's really valuable.
Yeah, it can definitely be more difficult to explain kind of the problems that the other people are asking, and answer those questions clearly, so they have enough confidence to do a JV with you. So it seems like you did that well.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think of very first, like, tenants send you a text and maybe something's gone wrong that's minor. It's like, you're very tense. You're like, what do I do? Like, oh no. Yeah. And then now you get to the point after you've got a few properties and you've done it for a few years, you just learn to kind of solve.
Yeah, you're comfortable with it. And now you know what the next step is to take. Totally.
Yeah, you build that confidence, and you build that momentum.
That's where I love, like, I know Tom, Nick, they talk about a lot of the time, like investing in real estate is kind of like personal development in itself, because you need to be able to handle these curveballs that come up and not panic, sit back, take a step back, look at the big picture, treat people with respect, right? When you're dealing with tenants, when you're dealing with prospective like buyers, sellers, everything like that. So I love that part of real estate as well.
Where is that fourth property that you guys just purchased?
So the new properties we've bought are in Sarnia. So we were because we're kind of Kitchener-Waterloo area. London is where I went to school, so I was familiar with that market. That was where our second property was. And then earlier in the year, it was just made sense numbers wise. Like London, Kitchener didn't make sense, and then Sarnia made sense. So with rates increasing and whatnot now, we do have a variable mortgage on that. So like it is like, it's a new experience in that regard too, because our previous properties, the rate haven't changed. One's a fixed mortgage, one's a mortgage like you were talking about with Dan Patton recently, that even if the rates go up, the payment to principal or interest just changes. It doesn't actually impact your cash flow. So this has been a new experience. Which is great.
It's like you can have your cake and eat it too. Like you get all the benefits of the fixed payment, and
Yeah. So these have been great. We have family down in that area, and there's a strong demand for tenants or for like rentals, because there's not a lot of rent.
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Available. Yeah.
For this last one in Sarnia as well, you find that there's strong demand.
Yeah. When we listed it, so following your systems and Rockstar's systems, I think within a week we had like 50 people fill out our Google form, and then from there we did like 5 or 10 phone interviews, and then 2 or 3 like further background checks, and then pick the time.
Yeah, all within a week. So yeah, that's a really strong demand.
And it actually was fully remote as well. Like I think I was saying to you, Anthony, that I had used your systems fully remote. I didn't have to make a trip down to Sarnia. It was actually right after the Bitcoin conference in April, and I came down with COVID, so I was able to use that a little bit to not do an in-person showing, but did a video tour of the property, just through thorough screening calls, and then sharing the video tour. And then had the tenant sign the rental deposit, and then the lease before. Well, the lease was signed when we saw the property, but we had the deposit, and then we did a showing in person, obviously making sure that everything was as is in the video and the photos. Yeah. And then they signed the lease on.
And they were comfortable with that?
Yeah, they were. So it was nice because we were able to build quite a good rapport with them over a few screening calls and whatnot. And they also just really were in love with the property. They already knew the area. Sarnia is a little more small town, so they knew the area. It's a nice home, nice area, like Rockstar always talks about. And they were comfortable with with proceeding, just because of the communication that we have.
How recent was that fill? Just for some context, I guess, with the demand and that kind of.
Yeah, so the process was kind of in mid-April, and then they moved in mid-May.
Okay.
So
cool.
just after we took possession.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
Anthony, sorry to interrupt, but you do have the really good and strong the property filling information and systems in place that makes that whole process a lot smoother than if you had no clue what was going on. Those systems in place make things a lot easier to fill.
Yeah, so for anyone who's maybe wondering what the system is, it's essentially posting your ad to online marketplaces like Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, Rentals.ca, Zumper. Those are kind of my 4 favorite platforms, especially Facebook Marketplace. And especially in smaller areas like Sarnia, I find Facebook Marketplace is just the best. And then setting up a Google form, which is essentially a free online form you can set up with all your pre-screening questions. And so all you do is you send a link to people who message you about that property to complete that form. They fill it out. It kind of automates the process for you and for them because you're not trying to do phone calls with everyone. You know, you're not trying to get them on the phone in the first place to do the interview and stuff. It's just quick and easy. You go through your Google Form submissions. It puts it on a nice spreadsheet. You see if they have the qualifications you're looking for, income, credit, pets, number of occupants, that type of stuff. And then you book showings with those people, right? And everyone who's coming to your showings is pre-qualified. And so you're kind of weeding out a lot of that stuff at the very get-go in this automated process. Like, it's just software.
Yeah, you're working with the leads that are coming in are a lot higher quality, I guess, than if you didn't go through that pre-screening process.
Yeah, and then it's the showing, and do you want the place? Yes. If so, they apply, and then you do your background check. You make sure that, you know, they actually are qualified. Everything they said on the Google form is true. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a little shaky, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate, right? And then, but you do your check just in case, and then you go from there.
Yeah. Well, and to kudos to you, Anthony, for the process and Rockstar, because I've had people say, like, thank you so much for this, like, smooth process. And they're just like so relieved, because even for myself, I've done like some market research and I've reached out to some ads in the area, and I'll send a message like, hey, is this still available? The canned message you always get on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Just to see how people respond and how that would like make me feel. And they just say like, yes, or they'll say, yes, like send your application to this email.
Yeah. And having quality communication is so important when dealing with tenants and really all of real estate investing in general. You need to have good quality communication.
And I think this is a really good way. Obviously, Facebook too, you can see their profile. But when you have them, you see how diligent they are, right? When they follow your process in the form, and if they follow up with you as well, it shows their interest and how, like, you know, keen they are. Attention to detail. Like, you can get a lot of insight.
Even how they fill out the form.
Yeah.
Some of the, like, if they write a paragraph at the end, I have this one last question. Anything else you'd like to add? And if they write like a paragraph about their situation, it just really tells you a lot about that person. And after you've been doing it for a while, you start to notice, you know, patterns, trends. You're like, that's a good one. You
100%.
Jump on that lead like instantly.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
So since the last time you were on this podcast, I think you were doing phone sales with Craig Ballantyne, who we're a big fan of. He's been on the show a bunch of times.
Yep.
You were investing in his programs, a lot of personal development, business coaching, and almost life coaching to a certain extent. But since then, you've now navigated into a role where you're working at Ledin, which is a Bitcoin and US dollar stablecoin financial services company. So this is essentially a new financial system that's being born, and you're at the forefront of it. It's almost like an online Bitcoin and USDC, which is a stable coin. So it's pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar in a crypto format. And you're working in this industry. So tell us why you went for that. How did you even get in there? Like, what were your motivations to make this big career pivot into this industry?
Yeah, no, great question. So when I was doing what I was doing previously, that came from a sales background. So I think last time, like even before that, I was in just like an account management role and a few different sales related roles. So I think my personal skill set, like communication, personal, interpersonal skills and whatnot, led to a good fit for a sales role. Because previously, before that, I was kind of pursuing policing, which that's what I went to school for and thought I wanted to do. When they say in high school, like, what career are you going to choose? It's like my cousin was into policing. He was a kind of a mentor to me. So went down that path, and then ended up realizing that skill set lent itself well to sales. And then obviously when I found the Rockstar podcast as well, Tom talks a lot about building skills. So I thought sales was always important, right? So working with Craig was fantastic. Learned so much, and obviously we had an income stream coming in from that as well. And then from there, it actually freed up a lot of my time because I was kind of like an intrapreneur, like working in his business, but kind of responsible for your own schedule. You set your own hours for taking on calls and everything else. So I was using a lot of that time to learn about Bitcoin and that space, because kind of just felt fascinated with it. Going back to like the start of COVID, having more time on our hands. I know that's when Rockstar started getting into it and having some people on the podcast. So so I was able to just kind of use the skill set that I had. And then just started reaching out to the team at Ledden, following kind of Tom's advice here, and they got in contact with them.
Were you looking at other Bitcoin companies?
I had a few interviews, but I did really like the fact that Ledden deals with Bitcoin only.
Yeah.
There was a few others that I was kind of interviewing with that deal with, a lot of the other coins, and I'm not a huge fan of that. So I really like that. I heard Maurizio on this podcast when he first came on, and then he came on the VIP call, which was awesome, like hearing him and seeing him speak. And I said to Maggie, I need to work for that company. So reached out to them. They didn't get back to me at first, so followed up.
How did you reach out? Just their general email?
So after the podcast, I think Maurizio left a couple emails. So I kind of sent mini cover letter and would love to connect type thing. Didn't hear back, and understandably so, because they had just raised like the first Series A.
Yep.
And really busy last summer.
Yeah, such a new industry, just growing at a rapid pace.
Exactly. So then I followed up, I think a couple times, and then finally was able to get on a call with not Maurizio, but someone else from the team that I also had CC'd on the email. And then,
were you afraid to follow up, or you're like, I've got nothing to lose here?
Well, so I actually had a few others on the go, and I was doing a few other interviews, but it was kind of one of those situations where like Ledden was the one I truly wanted. So I was happily doing these other interviews because I wanted to get into the space, and I figured, worst case, I start with someone else and then eventually use that experience to get in with, a company that I really
So Ledden was the main goal.
It was. And then, had a quick call with them, and then went through the formal hiring interview process. So
was there an open position, or did they make something?
There was somewhat. They were looking for someone with 3 years experience in the industry, but Maurizio joked with me afterwards. He's like, it's kind of hard to find in this industry right now when their company's only just now 4 years old, just turned 4 years old last week. So they realized that they kind of molded the role a little bit to kind of that account management.
What type of experience? Like specific sales experience in the Bitcoin industry, or just experience with Bitcoin?
It was a little bit of both. Someone with knowledge of the industry, and then a skill set that would suit what they were looking for. So it's essentially to come on and support more like, if you want to call it, high net worth clients. So clients that have needs beyond what the website offers, the retail platform. So that's kind of the role that I've come into. It's like an account manager role, connecting with clients face to face. Like that's something in this industry that I think it really separates Ledden, and I didn't really see any other companies doing it, is having the ability to reach out and say, hey, can we get on a call so you can clarify how this works for me, or can you tell me about what's been going on lately in the industry? So we have a team that we're assembling that does just that, right? So it's kind of that further support and build the trust with clients. So they didn't have that necessarily. Maurizio was kind of handling all that, but as the company's grown rapidly, that's where I've come in and helped with that. And then we've got a few other team members as well that have come on since I joined. So going back to your original question of that transition, it was something I was really passionate about, and I was spending all my free time trying to learn about the space. So then it just seemed like a logical fit to then start to work.
Were you communicating that in your interviews with Ledden? Yeah,
100%. They had even said that too. Is I didn't necessarily have the experience and the industry knowledge that they were looking for, but I came in and I fully prepared for the interviews. There was a mock pitch, and so I practiced all of that. That's what they had said was I guess the part that they saw in me was I was very passionate to learn about the space, and I think it goes back to what Tom talks about. When you have those kind of qualities and you show that you're coachable and you're hungry and whatnot, then people are looking for bringing on good people, right? That can learn the rest of it. So it's been a rapid learning curve since then to get caught up on the industry and everything else. But yeah, now it's basically being in the mix of everything I was doing outside of work anyways is now day to day. You're in this little bubble of learning about Bitcoin, learning about the developments in the industry. So it's been amazing. I've been there for 10 months now.
Yeah, good for you, man. What's it been like working with those high net worth clients? Are you feeding off of their energy? Are you learning stuff from these people who have built up, sizable whatever net worth?
Yeah, 100%. I'd say it's very similar. I get a similar feel to the Rockstar VIP group here, for example, where you can really learn from and fast track based on other people's experience, right? You don't have to make the same mistakes per se because others have been through it. The whole success leaves clue mentality. So similar on the Bitcoin side, like a lot of our clients, they're very, they've been in the space for a while. They have gone through something like what is happening right now, like kind of a flush out in the market.
They've seen this before.
Yeah, exactly. So they're very calm. They're not worried at this point. Whereas, a lot of like retail or if you run on Twitter or anything like that,
totally
there's a lot
out.
of panic. Yeah. So it's cool to learn kind of that peace of mind, that again, time preference, that they're in this for the long term in terms of Bitcoin and holding. And then just the way that they use the financial products, again, kind of similar to seeing like a rock star real estate investor refinancing a property or doing a basement suite, like things that are a little bit more sophisticated to the average person, but in this community it's very normal, and you learn quickly from surrounding yourself by others. The way that our clients use the products, like a Bitcoin-backed loan, for example, in order to like do further investments and like generate a higher return on their investment. So like it's really interesting and fascinating to learn about that.
So they're using Bitcoin as collateral to borrow against.
Yeah, that's our flagship product, is a loan that you can get dollars, access to dollars based.
It's awesome that you're on the forefront of this and being able to see this firsthand, because there's not many people at this point. Still, we're so early in this industry, being able to see what you're seeing on a daily basis and to see some of these high net worth clients with their mindset going in, thinking about Bitcoin and just what their beliefs are and what there is to come. Just their conviction, I guess, towards Bitcoin is probably awesome for you to see for yourself.
Yeah. It probably sucks you in a little bit more too.
Yeah, it must. Because I'm sure that's how we are a little bit, seeing real estate stuff all the time, every day.
Yeah, you just you get in an echo chamber, which I think can sometimes in life be a trap, but at the same time can be a huge benefit.
Totally.
Because you're surrounded by people actually doing the stuff you want to be doing, and you realize all these fears that you have in your head aren't as real as they may seem, or there's solutions to them, and it kind of separates you from the general public, and that you end up in this little subculture where what you're doing is normal. And then when you go out into the world, you realize it's actually not normal.
Yeah. But I also think that it's important to dive deep in, investing or in a subject or real estate or Bitcoin. It's important to dive deep into these things and be in these little subgroups and subcultures, because there's so much, you learn so much more.
You have to
being
immerse
a part
yourself
of
in it.
These groups.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's almost like I feel learning a language. Like to just learn a language on Duolingo, like the app on your phone.
Yeah,
when everyone around you speaks English and you're trying to learn a separate language, versus moving to Italy and living in Florence and everyone around you speaks a different language. You're just immersed in it.
The network, the connections you make, just the knowledge that you're going to grasp is way greater when you're surrounded with like people.
Yeah. So was that your motivation? You really were passionate about Bitcoin. You wanted to be surrounded by Bitcoiners?
Yeah, no, 100% is, I thought that it would just be like talking about Bitcoin all the time, but it is also the reality of building a business as well. It's not just, Bitcoin Twitter.
It's not just what I think of it in my head sometimes. I'm like, oh, I wonder if Connor's talking about this, and this that I just saw on my Twitter feed like 30 seconds ago.
Well, and that's the cool part about like speaking with clients and whatnot too, is they're fully into all of that. So you can like have those conversations and you build a really good connection and build a good rapport with them.
Yeah.
But then also like you have a strong understanding of how this business can benefit people, right? That's the whole like Bitcoin is the pristine collateral, like Michael Saylor talks about, is like whether we have a client in Mexico or we have a client in Argentina or Canada or Chile, wherever, like as long as you have the Bitcoin, you can get a loan. So that's the really cool part about like something like Ledin is we don't care about your credit score or your work history or anything like that. So it serves and solves a huge problem like all around the world. So that's the part that is like really I've loved to kind of see that what the problems that we're solving with different.
For sure.
Problems. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to bring up with you is having a side hustle that benefits your main hustle. For you, that would be Ledin. That's your day job. But then your side hustle is learning about Bitcoin, investing in real estate. And there's like a direct, I think, correlation. Like both things benefit the other.
Even working for Craig, I'm sure, like years prior, there's so much knowledge I'm sure you've gained in books that he's written and YouTube videos that
I find like a lot of people who want to start a side hustle, you almost have to live a double life. Because you have your day job and then maybe a side hustle that has nothing to do with what you're doing. And I find if you can set up your life with the side hustle that benefits your main hustle and vice versa, it just, you live this one single true life where like you don't have to hide anything. Your bosses at work know what you're doing. Your side hustle is not impacting.
Yeah,
your
you've
day
been
job.
able to benefit from doing some of that side hustle stuff that's been able to benefit you here, and just you've been able to do that yourself as well.
Yeah, I've stumbled into a similar story. I was into real estate investing. I was a Rockstar member, and then fell in love with this company. I was like, this is what we're doing here is so cool. And I wanted to be a part of it. And I knew that it would directly impact my real estate investing massively. And it has. And I knew that also my real estate investing would directly impact what I do here massively. I get to jump on podcasts like this now, talk about this stuff. And it's just been this like thing that I stumbled into, fortunately, and now I'm reflecting on, I'm like, wow, just having everything in line like that is so helpful just in life.
Yeah,
like
100%.
There's not that angst of, trying to live that double life or whatever. Like it directly benefits things.
I wanted to ask you guys, if you guys want to get into this now, about the personal development kind of thing that you guys do together. So if you guys want to get into that a little bit, that'll be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, so Connor is a super disciplined guy, which is weird because he's just this average dude. He's not like some military guy or something. But what we've been doing for probably since January? Something like that.
Just before Christmas.
Yeah, soon after we met, really, I found out that Connor was doing all this personal development stuff. He was into Craig Ballantyne's systems for kind of creating, what he calls the perfect day. And that's early morning wake-ups, morning routines, that type of stuff. And so me and Connor would bounce ideas off each other, what we're up to, what we're doing, try to keep each other motivated. And then we got to the point where we were like, okay, let's keep each other really accountable. And now we will dock each other money if we don't hit our goals. So we've become essentially accountability partners, keeping each other on track. So one of the things that we do is we both love waking up early in the morning. There's something magical about it. And I know they say that like it only matters, what you do when you're up. Doesn't matter when you wake up. And that's 100% true. But I think when you wake up early, the entire world is asleep. Like it's just quiet. Nobody's there to bother you. No family, no friends, no texts are coming in. Nobody at the office, like nothing. And so that environment, I just think allows you to quietly reflect, plan, do what you need to do, that type of stuff. So Connor and I are both into that. So if we don't text each other, we've kind of taken the summer off a little bit.
Yeah, we've been pretty lax the last couple of weeks. So
this
is going to hold us accountable to get back into it.
I know, for sure. Yeah, as soon as September hits, it's like go time again.
Yeah, I've seen Anthony walk in the office before. I'm like, what are you doing? He's sending a quick text to you.
So if I don't text Connor by, I think, 5 a.m., and if he doesn't text me by 5 a.m., we dock each other $10. And we just send each other a little emoji. And that's all it is. It's just like, hey, you're up, I'm up, cool. Yep. And so when I'm like in bed and I don't want to get up, I'm like, Connor's up, he's expecting that text, and I don't want to lose $10. So that really helps me get out of bed. And then something Connor's also been helping me with is stay on track. And so I'll text him by 7 a.m. I have to be at the gym. And then by 9 a.m. I have to be back at the office. And that's been huge. It's been life-changing for me. Because when you're doing it alone, it's so easy to slack off.
You got no one holding you accountable, right?
Having both of you guys together doing that must be way better, because just doing that, trying to do that by yourself would be impossible. Like having to hold yourself accountable must be way more difficult than having someone to do it with.
But you know what? It's difficult to find someone who's willing to do that.
I'm sure.
It goes back to like what you were saying there, Aiden, is like having that tight-knit group of people that you feel comfortable with, right? Whether it's a group of real estate investors that are willing to talk about the struggles they're facing, or a group of Bitcoiners willing to talk about the volatility that we're going through, right? Yeah. So it's the same thing. Like this comes from Craig's, going through his program and whatnot. But he talks about the very important part is obviously it's the accountability, but it's to someone that you deeply don't want to disappoint, is what he says. So like, I don't want to let you down. Like we're good buddies, right? I'm not going to lie to you and lay in bed and send a text, but then go back to sleep, because it's like, no, Anthony's up, Anthony's doing it, right? So it's having that person that you can
totally. You guys have been able to find a good duo and continue to be able to do that. Yeah,
and it's super rare, and I'm super grateful for it, because I've tried doing it with other people in my life, and you just slack off. Like there's just, they're not as intense about it. Whereas I find you're very intense. So am I. And so it's like a cool mix, because, you'll actually hold me accountable. You'd be like, hey, $10. Like, and you need that. You need someone to actually hold you to that. Otherwise there's nothing there. Like there's no negative impact, Tom's here taking a photo of us in the background. He's back from Croatia. So you do a bunch of this stuff. You do all this type of stuff. You do fear journaling, you do meditation, the accountability. You're now tracking your habits. You do morning exercise, breathing practices. I feel like you've tried all this stuff. What's had the biggest bang for its buck?
Yeah. All of that's not on a daily basis. It kind of like ebbs and flows in terms of what you're, what mood you're kind of in on the time. I think the biggest thing has been, and Tom talks about all the time, but like literally blocking out that time in the morning. So having that hour to 90 minutes of quiet time, and then any variety of those different things. But the biggest thing for me would definitely be like the proactive planning of whether it's your year, your quarter, your month, your week. The time for me on that, excuse me, is Sunday mornings. Yeah. So I'll take at least an hour every Sunday morning. Usually it's 2 hours because I love that quiet time. Planning out what is ahead for the week for sure. Like what are the big needle movers in like, my personal life, in our real estate or portfolio, anything that I need to do for work. I usually do that on work time, but just kind of those three main areas. Health and wellness as well kind of falls into the personal bucket. Set some goals for the week. I know Jatinder was on here recently. Him and Tom were talking about this too, like kind of like your own personal KPIs. And then from there, as long as you're like keeping on track with what the long-term vision is and why you want to wake up early, why you want to do all these things, what the motivation is, like keeping on track and making sure what your actions are aligned with those goals and that vision. I obviously do that a couple times a year, more of like a longer term plan and goal setting. But monthly for sure, end of the month, planning out the following month, and then the weekly planning of what your most important tasks are, so that you can then eliminate and delegate, automate the things that aren't important.
I see. So those short-term goals you're trying to put in place to meet the long-term goals. I'm sure there's been times where you've had to change long-term goals just based on different beliefs and thinkings that's changed for you over time.
Yep.
So how often are you revisiting those long-term goals?
Yeah, great question. I'd say usually it's twice a year. Like obviously the obvious one is around Christmas time, like kind of quiet time. You're planning out what you want for the following year. I think a lot of people do some of that thinking. And then this year, like the big goal for the start of the year was to pick up those two properties. So I actually found that after we did that, and I think we talked about this, Anthony, is like when you don't have something in mind, you kind of get a little aimless, right? So I knew I wanted to like be able to relax a little bit in the summer after accomplishing that and getting those filled, because it was a big push to do that. So the summer's been a little bit more relaxed, which I'm okay with, and it's coming to terms with accepting that you're not always in this like busy season. So I think that another time that I like to reevaluate that is, around like, I took some time on our holiday last week, and Maggie and I connected and like talked about where we want to be, making sure we're still aligned and whatnot. So for sure, twice a year. And then, monthly, looking ahead to the following month, the following couple quarters for sure. The big thing though, to answer your question, Anthony, I'd say is that weekly planning, because when you're, it's all about this, I find, and I think we've talked a lot about this, is the small daily actions are what are going to compound over time. So if you make that good decision to get out of bed instead of, going back to sleep for 15 minutes, like all of those stack up and compound. You eat the carrots instead of the chocolate bar, little things. So those daily and weekly tasks, and then keeping an eye on making sure those are still aligned with the longer term.
Okay. And I've heard a lot of people say it's been important for them to have time, whereas it's a little bit of free time or time that they can take to relax and let their mind kind of come up with your own ideas and reflect. Do you have that time scheduled in, or is that something that you kind of do as your week goes on when you can squeeze it in?
Yeah, great question. I think that's kind of been a little bit of what the morning time is for me. So obviously if we're like wanting to get our property refinanced or needing to fill a vacancy or anything like that, like that magic time, if you want to call it that, I know that's what Craig always calls it, that quiet time that you have for yourself. You want to get those most important tasks done right away in the morning. But right now I'm spending a lot of that time in the morning, like just kind of sitting, reading, doing some planning, some journaling, things like that. And I think before I used to, and I know we've talked about this, Anthony, like you kind of beat yourself up on like, am I being the most productive in the morning? And you kind of like get too type A with things. What's the reason that we're waking up early if we're not getting all these things done? But I think I'm accepting more and more to just, it's okay to just kind of have some of that time to reflect and be quiet. And like Anthony said earlier, like it's a nice time to do that because you're not distracted by your phone going off or anyone else being up. So to answer your question, Aiden, just in the mornings, like that time, that thinking time. And then also Maggie and I like to on drives, like we'll put a podcast on, but then we'll also just kind of like be talking, going back and forth on a car ride.
Yeah, I've actually, when I drove Christina, my girlfriend, up to Kenora, which is just outside of Winnipeg this weekend. She's working up there for a few months. We had 20 hours in the car together. Yeah. And it's like forced connection time. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing else to talk about. You can listen to a bit of music. Yeah, it's a lot of driving in a couple days. But it's a lot of connecting, but we were able to connect on a lot of different things and hash out, what we're thinking about for our future and where we want to be. And that's huge.
Well, it's so hard, and sorry to cut you off there, but we and Craig was just talking about this with Tom on the recent podcast. We have so many inputs constantly in our lives now, right? Like you're surrounded by something at all the time. Like whether you're on social media or you're on your phone, there's always the distractions. If you turn the TV on, it's always, mostly negative, but the news, anything like that. Macro context right now, everything is like constantly inundated. So you have all these inputs coming into your mind. And then I think a lot of people listening to this podcast, they'd also listen to a lot of podcasts. They're trying to learn, like they're blocking out a lot of that negativity, but they're learning about, real estate. They're learning about personal development. They're learning about Bitcoin, any different thing. So to just give yourself some time to like not have an input going in, like that's what Craig was talking about, is just like go for a walk or go for a drive and give your mind some time to just digest all
a little
these
bit of an
inputs
output or a workout.
Just quiet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How much of your planning do you do with Maggie versus solo? Do you do your planning solo and then present it to Maggie? Like, hey, this is what I've been thinking.
Present it.
Because I feel like you almost have
getting your PowerPoint slides ready to go.
No, she does a lot of these things too. And like, I think the vision of where we'd want to be like with investments and why we want to invest now and delay gratification and whatnot. Like we do a lot of that thinking and talking together, and we're always checking in on that. Like those are kind of like the car rides. She's not as, we've learned we're different. Like she doesn't want that, structured. This is what we're doing next Saturday, and then this is what we're doing the Tuesday after that. Like that's where I function well, is like having step by step and clear blocks. She's really good at like just kind of having that spontaneous conversation and asking good questions and getting us thinking. So we definitely communicate a lot on goals and all of that together. But we're doing each of our own kind of like individual day-to-days separately. It's not like, we're both sitting down and doing all these things, or I'm going to her and reporting what I'm working on. But yeah, definitely like, I think you kind of asked earlier, like what's the motivation for all of it? It would be like, forecasting a future family and wanting to have like a lifestyle where you can, have time with kids, and none of those things even exist right now, but you can see them and you extrapolate that out, and a partner is a big part of that. So wanting to make sure that you're aligned on all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Does she get upset that you're waking up early? You are kind of prioritizing yourself a little bit in the morning. How is that, managing that with the partner?
No, yeah, we've like molded a nice little routine in the morning where I'll wake her up after I've had like, so I'll 5 to 6 is kind of like quiet time where I'll do something by myself, and then I wake her up at 6. We go out for like a walk, or we go down to the gym. We do something together in terms of exercise in the morning. Yeah. And then from there, we both kind of like go on with preparing for our own work day and everything else. But we've got time in the morning, and then we usually try and carve out, if we're both working at home, we'll carve out some time at lunch or in the evening as well, whether it's like, going for an after dinner walk or unwinding, watching a show, reading together before bed, something like that. But like having carved out time together throughout the day. But no, there's no like,
So you guys are pretty in line with your wake up, your sleep schedules. I find that's huge, just being on the same schedule, because there's so many times where my girlfriend, because she was working later, would want to go to bed late and stuff. And I'm like exhausted by 9 or 10. I've had a full day. And she's like, she wants me to stay up and stuff. So there has been a bit of that conflict sometimes. But when we are aligned on that same schedule, it's just like magical. It's so much better. Another thing, you're not on social media. I think you deleted all your social media. You don't follow the news. What was your reason behind that?
Yeah, I've got Facebook back now temporarily, just to
market your properties.
Whatnot. Yeah, it's because
really,
it's so
no
it's
Twitter.
So I do have Twitter as well. So I guess that would have sparked from
Bitcoin kind of information.
No, oh yeah, sorry. I've had Twitter. It's
okay.
really great educational tool. Obviously, you have to be a little bit careful about going into the comments and
yeah.
getting too far down any of the rabbit holes. But I don't check Twitter that often. In terms of like deleting any kind of social media, like I used to have Instagram and Snapchat, a few of those things in university and since then. But I guess it was just kind of like priorities of where, goals that we had and where I want to be. And I think those things are great. They're a great tool they can be a great business tool and great socially as well to check in. But I just found myself at times, like, you end up scrolling for 30 minutes and it's like, you get this little bit of anxiety. It's like, I just wasted 30 minutes. Like, yeah, I got all this dopamine hits from seeing different things. So then I started with like time blocks and like limiting time on it. And then I just found, I think you actually told me, Anthony, is just like tried deleting it one time, and I deleted it, and I haven't really had a reason to go back. Like, I think the people that I want to connect with in my life are important, and I speak to them frequently. And then seeing, it's a lot of comparison, I think, subconsciously that we don't realize that can impact you. So that's my reasoning, at least for not being on there. But I definitely do see the use in terms of like something like Facebook, a marketing tool, or Instagram, like anything like that. You just have to be really careful about like You watch something like the Social Dilemma, and all the founders of those apps don't even let their kids on them because they are very dangerous, right? Like if you're not, what's the saying about you're the product, right? If it's free, then you're the product.
Yeah, your intention is the product.
And I think, Anthony, you're similar, right? You're not too active on social media or have a lot of the applications deleted.
Yeah. I have Facebook just for property purposes. And then I help manage the Rockstar Facebook VIP group. Similar with Telegram, I'm just there for the Rockstar VIP kind of private chat we have. But that's it. I've just found deleting those inputs from my life. I haven't missed it at all. The comparison thing is definitely huge. I mean, you're seeing everyone's highlight reel. Like, you're not seeing the negative moments.
Oh, yeah, not at all.
You're not seeing their negative talk, them at the lowest, which is like everyone goes through that. But you don't see that. You just see the highlight reels, the vacations, the big moments in everyone's lives. And when you're following hundreds of other people's, thousands of other people's highlight reels, you just start comparing it to your own life. And you're like, my life doesn't look like this on a daily basis, but all you're seeing is highlight. So that's been huge, just cutting that out. And especially if you're in a stage of your life, which you're going into now, which we've been going through, which is delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And also going against the grain. Society has this path that it sets out for everyone. Go to school, get this job, get the dream house, get the dream car, start the family. And it's like, that is a good path. But there's traps along the way. And when you're going against the grain, like if you're buying rental properties before you're buying your own personal house or a cottage or whatever it is, like what you and I have been doing, you have to surround yourself with people who support that vision. And you can't have all these inputs from other people, not doing that, because it's just like human psychology. You just want to fit in with the group, and you have to cut yourself 100%. Off from that group.
I can see how it's so important. I'm going to butcher whatever the saying is, but whoever you surround yourself with is who you become, or something along those lines. Yeah. And I can see how true that is.
And we discount the connection that it is when it's on your phone, because it's like, oh, it's just this digital thing. But it's like, no, you're connecting to these people. You're looking into their lives, and that has a direct input on you. Like if you look at your screen time on your phone, nobody likes looking at it because it's like, wow, I spend that much time on a screen. We spend so much of our lives in the digital kind of realm these days. And, you just got to be careful of what you're putting into your head. And it's not like social media is bad. It's a great way to connect with friends. Like, there's a lot of positives. I've just found cutting it out has been like, okay, who's actually really in my life? Like, who am I actually calling? Which of my friends am I staying in touch with? Yeah. Who's calling me?
Yeah.
Who are the real people in my life?
It's a balance. Like I think there's a balance to be, that you need to do if you don't want to fully delete or be off.
Yeah, no, I think you and I, Anthony, are a little intense with the full deleting and everything. Like, before I did that, I kind of trimmed out accounts I was following. It's literally just people I wanted to see and whatnot. So I don't think there's a problem with that at all. And I think going back to what you had asked earlier, Aiden, about, or I think you asked Anthony about what's like the most important habit too, is like, I think combining that quiet time with like not turning to your phone the first or the last thing in the morning, whether you're on social media apps or not, or if you're just checking your texts. Like, we're always looking for like those red notification bubbles. They're so dangerous, but that's like distracting our mind, right? Versus if you just put that phone away for an hour before bed and an hour in the morning and have some time to yourself, like that's a game changer as well. Just like in order to think for yourself, as opposed to like always relying on what's going on around you, right? With something like
totally.
Yeah. I mean, all those apps were so addictive. I started the same way. I had to trim down. I trimmed down a lot. I, went from maybe following 400 people on Instagram, and a lot of these people, great people, I went to high school with them and stuff, but they weren't part of my life anymore. Like, and I was still following along, spending my life following their life. But that had no positive impact on my life, And so I started trimming some of those people out, which it feels kind of ruthless, like unfollowing people like you're like it's an insult. Right?
Yeah.
And people are, like people get insulted by that. Oh, you're unfollowing me. I'm unfollowing you. That type of thing. And, but I did it anyways. And I trimmed it down to like 100 people. Then I trimmed it down to like 50 people. Then I was like, why am I even on here looking at what my buddy's doing? Like, why don't I give him a call and catch up? Or
plan to go. Became your closest circle anyways.
Then so it was step by step, but it's like, it had its grips on me. Like, I didn't want to let it go. And you're so afraid of missing out because everyone else is doing it. So it's going against the grain is so hard sometimes, because as much as you want to think that you're like an independent person and don't want to fit in with the crowd, you do. 100. I know I do. we're just wired for it, right?
Well, it's like going back to like early human, right? If you weren't in the group, if you weren't roaming with the group and killing the buffalo or whatever it was that you were using to survive, then you were dead, right? If you were outcasted.
Yeah.
So we have this connection to wanting to fit in, and like I think again it can be a positive tool, but you have to be very cognizant of like why you're on there and what you're putting your time into, right? So again, just kind of taking time to think for yourself versus taking 30 minutes to look at what everyone else is doing. So it's just what do you want for your life?
Yeah, we're still just hardwired with that caveman, body, mentality, mind, hormones, but we're living in this technological world. Like none of this would have been possible 30 years ago. And if you just, back to the social media thing, if you think about it 30 years ago, you would have gone to high school, gone to college, university, gathered all these friends, all these associates, all these people in your network.
But yeah, then life goes on.
But then life goes on, and you move apart from people. You keep the phone number maybe, which is another technological advancement to even have someone's phone number, and you keep in touch with some people you meet. But people just in life, it's a journey. Everyone's on their own different journeys, and the journeys intertwine, and sometimes they weave back out, and you're not a part of each other's life. But on social media, you just gather. Yeah. It's like you gather this almost dead wood, and you need to like burn it off, I find, to get back to the core of like, okay, who's actually matters in my life? Why am I spending an hour, going through Instagram when I could be spending that hour connecting with someone, my mom, my dad, my girlfriend, my friends,
Yeah, I found myself guilty of scrolling Instagram, TikTok, and I'm like, oh, what am I doing still on here? Just yesterday.
Yeah, but it's designed that way.
Totally.
Like it's not even our fault.
I feel like I do a good job balancing, but like for the most part, definitely like I was saying yesterday, I was sitting on the couch. I'm like, oh, I'm still on TikTok.
Yeah. Well, you're 20 years old too. You're so young, and like everyone is on there, and so you really are missing out when you are off of it. And so maybe there is a balance to strike for you. I think Connor and I did it in our mid-20s when we had been through university, and people are starting to kind of separate, or at least drill down and focus on themselves.
Yeah, but I can see how it's important and that's why I try to balance and not spend so many hours of my day just sitting there watching meaningless, clips and videos and stuff like that. Yeah. But
well, and you can think you're as disciplined as you want, but like even on Facebook now, the first thing that's just there, right? Like those stories are up at the top. You see something that looks attractive. Yeah. You click it, and then all of a sudden you're on like 5 stories later, like a minute's gone by, and like I have to like consciously be like, okay, like put this aside, but like it's just the temptation is there. So that's where I found, at least, like just kind of cutting it out. Haven't really found the need to go back. I think you're nailing it, Anthony, with like the people that really matter in your life. You're going to find a way to keep up and connect with them. So that's just my own kind of stance on that. But I think that's been key, especially with, a lot of since I've kind of been doing that. It's been like COVID times. There's a lot in the news. There's now, war, all these different things, right? Macro interest rates, all of these different things going on. No matter where you go, it's usually negative, and that's impacting your subconscious, whether you know it or not. Like our brain's 95% subconscious. So we think we can control it, but it's going to impact you. So I've just found to cut all that out and try and feed like positive things into your mind, and positive support has been a game changer.
Yeah, if it's not in your environment, if the apps aren't on your phone, if the TV's not in your room, you don't need the willpower anymore, because the temptation's not there to not press it, and it's not exhausting your willpower reserve, which isn't infinite. Like you have a finite amount of willpower every day, and so if you remove those things from your environment entirely, if you throw out the bad food in your house, you now have all this freed up willpower. Like it's not a big deal anymore. So that's been huge. So you're cutting out news as well.
Yeah, no, I never watch TV or the news. Like the only thing we'd watch is a couple shows on Netflix, but it's never like anything that has commercials, unless it's like the odd live sporting event. And even then, it's funny to like, once you kind of remove yourself and you look back at like what the commercials are and the marketing and everything else, it's funny to see a commercial now. But yeah, cut out all news and anything like that.
I heard a really good Tim Ferriss quote once, and it was, if something's important enough, you'll hear about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
if even if you're not paying attention to the news, you kind of know what's going on with COVID and protocols. You know what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. You don't know the day to day, but you know enough, right? Like if something's important enough, people are going to be talking about it at work.
You're right. Yeah.
You'll hear of it. You'll hear about it. So you don't need to kind of learn about it and then hear about it again at work. You're already going to hear about it.
Well, and that goes back to what you were saying earlier, is like if we want to have these big goals about, purchasing real estate and getting to a life on your terms, truly, you have to make those hard decisions. Like if you're always making the easy decision, spending an hour on social media or watching TV, watching the news, then life's going to be really hard. And if you always make the hard decision, you cut those things out. You know, you take the discipline action in the morning, you plan out your week, all of those things that aren't glorious, then life's going to end up pretty easy. It's like, you know, that's a saying that I've heard that I like the idea of. And it's just like in the moment, always kind of consciously making that hard decision will lead to an easier outcome in the end, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think real estate investors give themselves like enough credit for what they're really trying to do. Like you're trying to live life on your terms and completely control your life. And I've seen so many people do that at Rockstar. You know, there's a couple who bought a bunch of properties. I think they've got about 10 now in their portfolio. They're retiring. They're building a ranch in Mexico. You know, there's another Rockstar member, built up a big portfolio. He was an immigrant from Argentina. He just retired from his job and he's moving to a villa in the Dominican.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like these things are so rare.
Yeah. So many cool stories that you hear, which are rare.
Rare. Like who else in life is doing this? I haven't met anyone outside of real estate investors and business owners. And it just comes down to like real estate and building a business
and focusing, right? Like Aidan was saying earlier, like you got to have a narrow focus and have the confidence and the self confidence to like stick with it during hard times.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the successful people I've seen has kind of found their thing and stuck with it and went all in on it, and that was that's what was paid off for them, even if they tried, you know, a bunch of little things until they found that their one thing was working for them, and then they continued growing based off of that.
Mm-hmm.
So how have you developed that confidence to go against the grain, to shut out all the noise, and to just focus on yourself and know what you're doing is the right path?
And even your industry specifically, I'm sure there's lots of people that don't understand what you're doing, why you're doing it. They think that, it's not here to last. So you have strong conviction and confidence.
You're definitely like a contrarian. You're investing in real estate. You're not going for the big salary, although I know you're comfortably paid and stuff, but you're investing in Leiden and in this industry you want to be in. You're definitely a contrarian. So how have you developed the confidence?
Yeah. Great questions, guys. The confidence, I guess, would come from, it goes back to the whole, like, I'm not the one like figuring out all these like great ways to live a life and get a life on your terms. Like the whole success leaves clues. Like I think it's like putting your ego aside and just like learning and leaning on people that are living the life that you want. Like you look at like Tom and Nick, you look at other VIP members, like you're talking about moving to Mexico and building a villa. That would be like, I guess, where the confidence comes from, is seeing enough other people that are doing it and that it's worked for. And then just accepting that, you know, if you can follow the same path, generally, then you're probably going to end up with similar results. And then in doing so, you have to make sure that, like Aidan was saying, you have to kind of focus and be able to block out a lot of the noise. So that's where I think, like, you know, getting off of Twitter when the Bitcoin price is dropping by 20% in a week and seeing all these negative comments from everyone coming in. And then even like real estate right now, like, you know, you go on anything or any kind of post about real estate and interest rates and the market's going to crash completely. Like that can get to you, right? Even if you have that conviction, you have the confidence.
Just over time,
seeing
it. Yeah. Eventually.
So it goes back to like finding these positive groups, like Anthony, you and I speaking, and then Aidan, every time we were able to catch up, like it's just positive support of people that understand and being able to like have the conversations about, like, you know, the struggles that you are going through per se, with whatever's going on, but having that trust and those conversations help a lot as well. But yeah, I'd say like in terms of accepting the contrarian, like I think it's just realizing, and it comes from books as well, like reading a lot of books that I don't think, like you were saying it earlier, Anthony, like the general outline that society pushes for people isn't really set up to make you wealthy and to get you on a life that you're in control of, right? It's gets you set up for a job where you're kind of handcuffed to the job. You know, maybe you're able to put a little bit aside and get a bit of retirement later in life. But if you want something unique, and if you want something that is going to allow you to escape from that, then you need to kind of take actions like Tom always talks about. If you see 99% of people going one way, like ask why and maybe consider the other direction.
Do any specific books come to mind when you mention books there?
Yeah, one of the ones that I read early, well, obviously I think Rich Dad Poor Dad's a given, but one's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind kind of was a good mindset changer around money. And then just, you know, in terms of, you asked about the confidence, Anthony, like a lot of the personal development books, like the Dan Kennedy books are really good. Robin Sharma, all of those are really good. Napoleon Hill, obviously. So there's the classics, and then I think one of the ones that I always go back to, it's not necessarily like, it kind of helps in all areas of life, is the How to Win Friends and Influence People book. That one's been great.
I just finished that this week, and that was really good.
Yeah, I like to read that one like once every few months, because it's just, those principles are timeless.
Totally.
But yeah, the reading, the quiet time for yourself, having that tight network of people that are, on a similar path. And sometimes you feel naive, and it's like, are we being fooled here with like, Bitcoin and everyone that's into that? But it would go back to people that I feel are a lot smarter than me and have a lot more experience than I do. I guess I put trust in them that the information and the research that they've done is thorough, right? A lot of real estate investors, they've got the experience. A lot of people that have been in Bitcoin for a longer time, they've studied macroeconomy, they've studied economics and everything for a long period of time, and then things have kind of clicked for them in that space. So it's just all the information's out there. It's just kind of sifting through what path you want to go on, finding something that aligns with you, and then going all in, or focusing on 1, 2, 3 things that you feel.
Yeah, the Bitcoin rabbit hole specifically has taught me a lot more than I think it ever would have, just with economics, monetary policy, even regular politics,
energy,
history, technology,
computer science,
philosophy,
crazy,
like everything in there.
So much
global politics.
Yeah, so much of what I've recently learned and have enjoyed learning is all pretty much based off of and because of the Bitcoin was the initial thing that dragged me into this.
It's so weird. It's just a software program running on the internet.
Crazy.
It sucks you into like living your life differently, broadening your time horizons,
thinking longer term,
thinking long range, right? In every area of your life.
Well, that ripples into your health, right? Do you want to eat something today that's going to give you that satisfaction, or do you want to make those hard decisions that compound over months where you can be healthy? And if your money's going to last you longer and you're going to have that ability, then why wouldn't you want to be healthy in order to like live a more fulfilled life later in life, when hopefully your investments have paid off as well?
Totally.
You were talking about just the path that society lays out for you, and how that's what the 99% of people are doing. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think people get sucked along into that?
Deep there. Well, Maggie and her family, they've been into teaching. Like she's went to teachers college. A lot of her mom and her aunts were teachers. I think it's just like the way that society developed, and getting into some history and everything. Like, I'm not an expert on any of this, but
Sure.
like, we literally developed schools as a way for, the agricultural society to then, when it wasn't in harvesting season, then you put the kids in school during the winter and everything, and then you kind of have this curriculum that gets ingrained in people. It doesn't really pump out people that are going to think differently or be entrepreneurial. It really pumps out someone that then can go work in a factory, right? When factories came out. So I think the educational system, the reason I bring that up is because we talk a lot about it, and like teachers, I think are amazing, and they try and find ways that they can kind of put their own spin on those curriculums. But a lot of it is like just kind of mass, like university, high school, all of that is like you follow a certain path, right? And so we all get ingrained as to what's successful with that path. And I think it takes a lot to kind of stray away from that, because going back to what we talked about earlier, you always want to kind of fit in with what others are doing. So for such a long time, the norm was, you're really successful if you went to university, you got a job. But everything's related too. Like we talked about Bitcoin, like before you could do that, you could go get a job after university that would pay you really well. You could buy your house, but then you guys know what the charts look like now, right? When real estate's gone up like this,
times have changed,
and then the income's gone like this. So I think a lot of people are kind of realizing this, and they're feeling this strain and the struggle. And that's where I think, we're not alone in terms of starting to think differently, in terms of like, the current system and how we've gotten to this point. There's going to be a lot in the next few years here. And I think Bitcoin will play a big part of it. But it's so much more than just, what your job is or what, path you're on. It's what is important to you. And I'm kind of losing my train of thought on your question.
That was a good answer, man. That was a good answer. But you're right. I have heard that about school, that they were set up, especially with the industrial age, to set you up to become factory workers. That's like what the bells are.
Yeah.
Follow orders. And it just gets beaten into you, into your psychology. And it does take a lot to kind of break free.
Yeah, it really does. I think the businesses that'll do really well now in this kind of new age is the ones that do offer more of that like kind of entrepreneurial. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with having a job, and a job can serve you really well, right? We all know, like when you go to the mortgage broker and you want to qualify for a home, like it's hard if you're entrepreneurial and you're self-employed. Like it's
Yeah,
hard
you
to then
want
have the
that
investing part
income,
too, right?
yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with having a job at all.
Want to
It's just
qualify.
having a job that allows you some freedom to, like, you know, be creative in your role and have some ownership and you know, be flexible, not just, you know, checking in, checking out, kind of turning your mind off. It goes back to, again, like being challenged and thinking and you know, if you can take that into your work, then I think that's amazing. And then you can use that outside of work, focus on your side hustle, focus on your investing, and kind of still build a life on your terms. You don't have to be entrepreneurial, because I think that's another thing that is really, you go on social media. I know, Anthony, we've talked about this, is like, you feel like you should have, like, you know, 2 businesses on the go by the time you're 25 and have all this passive income, because that's all anyone talks about on social media. But it's okay to have a job as well and to kind of follow that traditional path. It's just, again, being conscious of, like, is that a path that you're choosing, or is that something that, you know, you're just kind of following because everyone else is doing it? So. Sure.
And if you own a rental property, you own a business.
100%.
Like, make no mistake about it. I didn't think about that until maybe my second or third. I'm like, I've always wanted to, you know, own a business and stuff. And I was like, wait a second, you know, I've got 3 properties, each have their own balance sheets, each have their own income statements, each has their own customers paying me every month. I'm maintaining these, I'm upkeeping them, I'm improving the businesses over time. I'm
revenue coming in.
It's a business.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think I read somewhere that, like, in the early 1900s, like 90% of people were essentially self-employed. It was all farmers, essentially. And, you know, with the industrial age, that's all shifted, you know, factory workers and stuff. Now everyone's employed. But I think you're right. We're just on this big cultural trend shift where people are now relying on themselves more and becoming more entrepreneurial. And I think real estate is just the best way to leverage that T4 income to start that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have anything else for Connor?
No, I think that was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Love these conversations. And like we talked about throughout, it's like when you have these conversations, it always motivates you, right? And you're thinking on the same way with other like-minded people and network like this. So really appreciate a lot of the things Maggie and I have been able to do. We really owe a lot to Rockstar. I know you guys are a big part of that, Tom and Nick and everyone in this community. So really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for the kind words, man. And it's right back at you. I've directly seen the discipline that you've put in your life have the impact that it has. It's gotten you, like, this dream job. It's gotten you the properties. It's gotten you the great relationship with Maggie. So it's really cool to see, man. So yeah, keep it up.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.